I'm Lauren Bennett, and I've put significant effort into building the life I currently lead. I work as a senior analyst for a Portland-based financial firm at the age of 34. I live alone in a small two-bedroom townhouse in a quiet area, surrounded by books. I adore soft lighting and the tranquility I worked so hard to achieve after my divorce. I made a vow to myself after the turmoil of my marriage to Caleb, who left me emotionally spent and in debt, that I would never again allow someone to upend the stability I had meticulously established. There was silence for a time, which felt predictable and secure. Predictable. Secure. On a soggy Sunday afternoon, that changed. My phone rang when I was enjoying a cup of tea and a blanket on the couch, while I watched the clouds drift across the Willamette River outside my window. It was my mom calling. I sensed it as soon as her name appeared on the screen. When a favor was about to be asked, I always felt that tiny knot in my gut. Too brightly, Mom said, "Hey, sweetheart, how are you finding the weekend?" Already suspicious, I paused. Very calm. Why? What's happening? She hesitated and then said, "Well, your brother Zach is in a bit of a tight spot," as if she were attempting to cushion a fall. His lease expired, and he recently lost his job once more. Currently, he has nowhere to stay. I reasoned that he might be able to use the old condo for a while. I shut my eyes. The former condominium. I had kept that place a little one-bedroom apartment in the Alberta Arts District after the divorce. As part of my settlement with Caleb, I maintained it as a safety net for my finances while I moved out, intending to rent it out to help pay off the large mortgage on my new home. "I was about to list it, Mom," I answered tentatively. "I need the rental income." Her voice changed to that lovely guilt-trip tone that only mothers can master, and she answered, "I know, honey. However, you're doing fantastically. Zach is also your brother. He is in dire need of assistance right now." I let out a sigh. Zach, who was 30 years old and 4 years younger than me, was a constant source of poor decisions. His relationships appeared to come and go as quickly as his phone numbers, and he had never kept down a steady employment for more than a few months. Nevertheless, I was fully aware of the consequences of refusing. Every family meal and holiday get-together would portray me as self-centered. When her family needed her, the cold sister abandoned them. I so swallowed my better sense, as I always do with my family. "All right," I replied. "It's only temporary, though. No more than a few weeks," Mom exclaimed. "Oh, thank you, sweetheart. You are truly a gift. I'll inform him immediately." Before I could add any regulations, she hung up. I sat there for a while, feeling a sinking sensation crawl into my chest as I stared at the silent gray outside my window. I reminded myself that it was only temporary, that doing this was the proper course of action. However, I already knew in my heart that nothing would ever be easy again after Zach entered that apartment. On a Wednesday night, Zach and I met outside the former condo. The sky was gloomy, and the early fall breeze smelled of pine and something gently burned from a neighboring chimney. Zach had a duffel bag that had clearly seen better days, and 2 trash bags slung over his shoulders as he waited by the gate. When he saw me, he smiled. "Hey sis, you've saved my life." I smiled slightly at him, but I couldn't help but notice how unconcerned he appeared, as if this were just another hiccup in a lengthy series of breakdowns. His jacket was zipped halfway over a hoodie with an unfamiliar band emblem, and his jeans were ripped at the knee. As I unlocked the door, I reminded him that it was just temporary. "Just until you're able to stand again." "Yes, without a doubt." He entered as though he already owned the home and remarked, "A couple of weeks, tops." The condominium was spotless. Months prior, I had it professionally cleaned in preparation for renting it out. The kitchen smelled somewhat of lemon-scented polish, the hardwood floors shone, and the beige sofa I had left behind still looked brand new. Despite its diminutive size, it contained a lot of my past, a version of myself that I was happy to have let go of. Zach dropped his luggage to the ground. "This is nice, man. It exceeds my expectations." "Are you certain you don't mind?" I refrained from speaking. Naturally, I objected. However, it was too late to change course. I stated forcefully, "I have a few conditions. No gatherings. I do not allow visitors to stay overnight without first discussing their plans with me. No pets. And keep it clean, not just your definition of clean, Zach, but clean." Despite rolling his eyes, he nodded. Yes, indeed. I understand. Relax. I am no longer a teenager. I didn't respond. I simply gave him the extra key and left with an unexplainable weight on my chest. Everything appeared to be going well for the first 2 weeks. Every now and again, Zach texted, "Everything is fine here," or "Thanks again, sis," and I allowed myself to think that the plan might work. In the evenings, I tried to persuade myself that I wasn't only waiting for the other shoe to drop because I was occupied with a new project at work. The neighbors, however, began messaging. Miss S. Garcia from down the hall was the first. Hello, Lauren. I was just curious if you knew that your unit played loud music last night. Then it was the retiree next door, Daniel. I noticed a young woman entering and leaving your condo. I felt you should know, but I didn't want to pry. A chill went down my spine. I dropped by after work that Friday. My instinct warned me not to contact in advance. I heard laughter as soon as I entered the hallway. The laughter was loud, bold, and unfamiliar. A woman in her early 20s, barefoot and sporting one of Zach's baggy sweaters, was waiting for me instead of my brother when I unlocked the door. She was going through her phone as if she lived there while seated cross-legged on the couch. Unfazed, she looked up. Oh, hello. You have to be Lauren. I blinked. And you are? With confidence and a smile on her face, she got up and held out her hand. My name is Kayla, Zach's girlfriend. A girlfriend? We had already reached that point? Zach emerged from the hallway before I could reply, his face a mix of smugness and sheepishness. Hi, Laure. I had no idea you were stopping by. You didn't, I said. There was steel beneath the calmness of my voice. Can we have a conversation? By yourself? Kayla chuckled. Oh, please, don't be uncomfortable. Here, we are all grown-ups. Now, I said in a harsher voice. Rolling her eyes, Kayla entered the bedroom as if she owned it. I looked across at Zach. What did you not comprehend about no guests without asking? He avoided making eye contact and rubbed his neck. It wasn't a major concern. All she wanted was somewhere to crash. She was expelled by her roommate. I said, Zach, this is precisely what I was worried about. You informed me that it was temporary. You're moving people in now? He gave a shrug. We mean it. She's fantastic. If you gave her a chance, you would like her. A familiar anguish in my chest made me feel as though my own boundaries were being erased. It's not a free-for-all here. I allowed you to remain here in order to assist you, not to use this as your own playground. Zach's grin disappeared. You don't need to act as though I'm a burden, I said. I didn't say that. But you're making it difficult for me to assist you, Kayla yelled from the bedroom as I was leaving that evening. Try texting first the next time. Simply walking in is a bit impolite. I didn't answer. I didn't believe that I wouldn't yell. I attempted to forget about it the next week. Perhaps I was being too rigid, I told myself. Perhaps Kayla only needed a place to stay for a few nights, and Zach would manage to keep things under control despite everything. But I already knew better in my heart. The water bill served as the first indication. It had nearly doubled. Then, a package for Kayla, not Zach, arrived at my condo address. The package was from a luxury skincare brand. At first, I kept quiet, but I made a mental note. Then the neighbors showed up once more. This time, Miss S. Garcia contacted me. Her voice dipped in concern. There were many people coming and departing from your apartment last night, Lauren. I would rather not cause any trouble. Someone spilled beer on the carpet in the stairwell when there was loud music and laughter. This morning, I had to clean it myself. I tightened my jaw. I hung up after thanking her. I gave Zach a call that evening. He didn't respond. After work, I drove over. Something wasn't right when I arrived. My key didn't fit. I gave it another go. I tried it again. Someone had replaced the lock. I stood there in shock for a second. It was too much for my brain to process. I own this. I made my tax, utility, and mortgage payments, and I was unable to enter. I gave it a good knock. The door cracked open after almost a minute. Kayla's eyes narrowed as her face emerged. Oh, it's you. Before she could stop me, I pulled the door open and asked, What did you do to my lock? Like a guard dog, she stood between me and the living room with her arms crossed. You holding a key made me feel unsafe. You keep rushing in. Kayla, it's my apartment. I can enter it without authorization. In a technical sense, we now reside here. You can't just show up and leave anytime you want. It is intrusive. I took a look around. The once clean area was in disarray, with takeout containers on the coffee table, clothing slung across the backs of chairs, and an odd odor emanating from the kitchen that I dared to explore. Then, as if I had broken his slumber, Zach entered from the corridor and rubbed his eyes. Hi, Lore. Is it not possible for us to do this now? Slowly, I turned to face him. You replaced the locks. Kayla didn't feel at ease. I don't give a damn about her feelings. You didn't inquire. You kept it from me. You made a decision just now. Kayla stood smugly behind him, and he looked at her. All we wanted was a little privacy. This isn't privacy, I murmured. My teeth tightened. It is trespassing. Kayla laughed. Stop being dramatic. Please text first if you'd like to come. It's what regular folks do. My throat tightened with each breath. Seeing someone take possession of both my stuff and my sense of control over my own life made me feel as though I was in a bad dream. Zach, I continued, now speaking in a flat tone, you assured me that such an experience would only last temporarily. You made a pledge. He turned his head away. Changes occurred. No, I yelled. You altered the guidelines. Someone moved in with you. You disregarded all of the boundaries I established. Then Kayla took a sheet of paper off the counter in the kitchen. You really enjoy rules? These are our rules, she said, thrusting it at me. For when you visit, I gazed at her. Then Zach, I remarked. She's kidding. Kayla gave a head shake. No, you must arrive between 10 a.m. and give 48 hours notice if you wish to visit. And 6 p.m., please no remarks about our way of life. No lectures, no criticism. Something snapped within me. Not really rage, but something more profound. Sadder. I realized that, for the first time, I had lost any semblance of respect that still existed between my brother and me. Zach avoided looking at me when I stared at him. I muttered, I want you both out. You have a week. There was a worried edge to Kayla's laughter. That's not possible. We are entitled to certain rights. A lease does not exist. No consensus. There is nothing on paper. Just my kindness, which is officially over. At last, Zach said something. Lauren, hurry. Avoid overreacting. Let's clean up, shall we? We will repair the lock. We will, to silence him. I held up a hand. You had an opportunity. You broke every rule. You handed me a list of requests in my own house and changed the locks to a location that isn't yours. I walked over and opened the door. 1 week, I said without turning around. Thereafter, I'll be changing the locks once again. And I won't be so courteous the next time. When I woke up the morning after giving Zach and Kayla a week's notice, I discovered that Mom had left 3 missed calls. Additionally, there was a lengthy text that began, "We need to talk," and concluded, "You're tearing this family apart." With a groan, I got out of bed and poured myself some coffee in the hopes that the caffeine would numb the guilt that was steadily growing inside of me. However, the phone continued to buzz. I finally responded. Lauren, Mom began, gasping for air as if she had been crying. Zach just gave me a call. What's happening? Why are you dismissing him? I inhaled deeply. He changed my apartment's locks. He moved someone in without asking permission, because they've been destroying the area, hosting parties, and establishing guidelines for when I'm allowed to be on my own land. You most likely caught them at a bad time, she said too hastily, dismissing everything as usual. I'm positive it's not as serious as you're portraying it. I responded, Mom. He's made that apartment into a frat house. In a fit of rage, Kayla tossed one of my antique lamps. The cost of utilities is really high. The HOA is being threatened by Miss S. Garcia, who lives next door. Quiet. Then came the sound that always made my stomach turn, worry cloaked in disappointment. She said, I just don't understand how you can be so cold to your brother. He's having trouble. He's making an effort. Additionally, you're punishing him, sanctioning him. I almost choked on my coffee as I asked. I let him live in a house I own for free. My only request was that no one move in. He disregarded all the rules. Mom, I'm finally establishing boundaries. I'm not punishing him. Another pause. Then the actual blow struck. Since the divorce, you have changed. I clenched my fist around the mug. It was there. The old story was that I had grown resentful, unkind. selfish, as though I had somehow become a villain due to sadness. I had to change, I whispered in a quiet voice. Because nobody else, not now, not then, was going to protect me. She let out another sigh. I spoke with your father. Zach and Kayla will come here if they are unable to stay with you. However, you are aware of this place's small size. It's not the best. And the guilt grenade was there. I didn't fall for it. I don't have to clean up a mess I didn't make. Her tone became icy. I hope you're able to live on your own, I answered. I already am, and hung up. As I passed the Willamette River that evening, I reflected on how quickly affection in a family could turn into duty and how saying no made you the bad guy, even if it was the only way to live. I doubted that I would ever be completely at peace with this. However, I was aware of this. I refused to allow my family to exploit guilt as a means of destroying my tranquility. I drove to the flat to deliver a written eviction notice 2 days after that exhausting phone conversation with Mom. I just wanted to leave it taped to the door and go. I wasn't in the mood for drama, but I froze when I got closer. Kayla has a yard sale going on outside. It wasn't a garage, though. My front porch was the location. And the goods she was offering for sale, my kitchenware, my rug. Even the old light that she had nearly broken the previous week. What on earth is this? I stormed up the steps and demanded. Kayla did not recoil. She had a smug little smile on her face and was wearing big sunglasses. Hey, Lauren. To create space, we were just getting rid of some of the outdated, unsightly items. She gestured toward a sign that read, Moving sale, everything must go. Venmo or cash. Are you selling my belongings? She remarked. They're just things. It's obvious that you weren't using them. And truthfully, the fragrance of that rug was strange. She continued, You should be thanking me. Before I could even reply. I will redecorate your place at no cost to you. I became enraged. I ripped the sign in two and yanked it off the railing. Return everything inside. At this moment, she gave an eye roll. Calm down. In any case, we didn't make much. Zach has been complaining about how tight you are about this place. I suppose he was correct. I trembled and tightened my fists. I've had enough of being nice. I gave you 2 per week. The deadline has been accelerated. You have 48 hours. I'll change the locks after that and, if necessary, call the police. Zach eventually showed up at that point, carrying a half-eaten bagel outside. Whoa, what is going on? He asked, sounding as though he had just rolled out of bed. I yelled, Your girlfriend is selling my property. Kayla sighed. In technical terms, our common area. Pale, Zach glanced between us. All right, that's not cool. But there was no conviction in his speech. He had no intention of stopping her. He didn't. It dawned on me then. Zach wasn't merely docile. He participated. He not only supported Kayla, but also made it possible for her to do so. I approached him, looking him in the eye. Zach, I'm not asking anymore. I'm telling you. Leave. 2 days. That's all. I then looked at Kayla, whose arrogance had transformed into a smoldering wrath. I stepped back and said, I hope you got a good price for the rug. Because your dignity could be the next item you sell? I gave my lawyer another call that evening. I needed the schedule, the documentation, and the sheriff's support in case it became necessary. Because I wasn't only defending an apartment this time, I was taking back all the boundaries. I had previously let my family cross. My parents' guilt-tripping, voicemails, and texts overtook the next 48 hours. In one communication, Mom begged, Lauren, you're overreacting. In another, Dad remarked, she's just young and figuring things out. A third came from Aunt Gwen, who I hadn't spoken to in more than a year. You're treating your brother cruelly. Zach, meanwhile, sent a series of frantic texts, half defenses for Kayla, half apologies. None of them were answered by me. I desired for this to be definitive, lawful, and pure. I showed up there with the locksmith and my lawyer friend Kelsey on the day of the eviction. First, we knocked. Nobody responded. They must be stalling, Kelsey whispered. She was correct. Like she was on a courtroom reality show, Kayla flung the door open theatrically as the locksmith began to work on it. With her phone in hand, she yelled, You can't just walk in here. I am recording everything. This is harassment. Behind her, Zach stood with his arms crossed and his eyes red from sleep deprivation or worse. Notice was given to you, Kelsey said coolly. Lauren owns this property. You're not renters. There is no lease for you. You've been here too long. Kayla gave an eye roll. Anyway, in any case, we're going. But then she smirked and turned to face me. She said, We left you a small gift, just so you know. I smelled it as soon as I pushed past her and entered the flat. Spoiled milk. The refrigerator door in the kitchen was ajar. There were puddles of muddy liquid inside, where rotting food sat. The sink had mold in it. The floor was littered with trash. The hinges on one of the cabinet doors were torn off. There was outright sabotage. Queen Bee lives here was written in lipstick on the mirror in the restroom. Very mature, I whispered. Kelsey gave a head shake. You may file charges for the harm. But I had stopped observing the chaos. I was looking at Kayla, who was still shooting and grinning like she had won while standing by the entrance. I muttered, I hope this was worth it. Her head was tilted. You'll move past it. You're so stiff. In charge. It makes sense why your marriage fell apart. That was really painful, but I didn't recoil. Instead, I took a tiny envelope out of my backpack and gave it to Zach. What is this? He inquired. I received a bill, I said. It includes charges for the furnishings you attempted to sell, the cleaning cost, and the carpet repair. It is broken down by item. Kayla laughed. You're not serious. I answered, Oh, I'm very serious. Both of you are at fault. You can now face the adult repercussions for wanting to play house in someone else's residence. Zach looked at me, then at the paper. There was no argument for once. No justifications. Shame only. Silently, they packed their final belongings. After they left, I took a big breath and stood in the center of my destroyed flat. Something stronger was building behind the anger that was boiling inside of me. Clarity. The apartment was no longer the only issue. It was about all the times I had been shamed into quiet and allowed people to walk over me. No more. A week went by. After the flat was cleaned by professionals, I was able to find a responsible tenant. Michelle, a nurse, was starting a new job at the children's hospital in the area. Polite, quiet, and financially secure. Zach was all I dreamed he would be. With a solid handshake and a weight off my chest, I gave Michelle the keys. I felt like I was returning to my life for the first time in months. Naturally, however, the tranquility was short-lived. My phone rang that Sunday when I was out to breakfast with Kelsey, and it displayed a series of missed calls, all from Mom. Then Dad texted me, Come by for dinner tonight. We need to talk, please. I choose to disregard it, but things got out of hand by Tuesday. At 8:00 a.m., someone pressed the doorbell in my apartment. I looked at the video screen. Dad was there. This isn't a good time, I murmured, letting out a sigh and opening the intercom. Please, Lauren. We have only 5 minutes left. Our goal is to put things right. I buzzed him in against my better judgment. He appeared to have gone days without sleep as he stood in my hallway holding a plastic grocery bag in one hand. He held up the bag like a peace offering and added, I brought your favorite muffins from that cafe downtown. I didn't grin. Stop wasting time, Dad. He paused. Your sibling. His health is not good. He has been consuming alcohol. He is depressed. Kayla, she went out. After another dispute last week, she packed her stuff and vanished. I arched an eyebrow. She quickly destroyed a second home. He let out a sigh. Lauren, we were mistaken. Almost anything. Your mom can now see that as well. However, Zach, he requires assistance. I crossed my arms. You come to implore me to save him once more, then? No, he uttered rapidly. We are unsure about what to do. I gave him a serious look, and I noticed something in my father that I had never seen before. Helplessness. He found himself devoid of answers for the first time. They were being relied upon for the first time, and they were unsure of how to handle the pressure. I wasn't burdened by it, though. I apologize for Zach's difficulties, I said. However, I'm no longer his safety net. We have supported him for 30 years. Maybe he learns this time. Dad gave a slow nod. I get it. I do. However, on Friday, will you join us for dinner? Only dinner. No favors, no ambushes. After a lengthy silence, I muttered, I'll think about it. Without saying another word, he left the muffins on my counter and went. I sat on the couch that evening and gazed at the paper towel he had used to wrap the pastries. They remained warm, I didn't eat them, though. Anything that tasted like remorse was something I wasn't prepared to swallow. After much deliberation, I made the decision to go on Friday night. Not because I was trying to make things better. It's not that I owed them. However, I needed closure for myself, not for them. The atmosphere changed when I entered my parents' house, less noisy, as if the walls themselves were tiptoeing. I was met at the door by Mom. Somehow, she appeared older and smaller. She said, "Hi, Lauren," in a gentler voice than I remembered. "Thank you for coming. It was weird at dinner." Zach wasn't present. He had apparently stormed off that morning following yet another argument about seeking employment. Kayla had not returned. It had been days since anyone had heard from her. Until Dad cleared his throat, we ate in almost complete stillness. "We would like to apologize, Lauren. As guardians and as human beings, we let you down. For years, we condoned Zach's actions and we allowed you to bear the blame." Mom nodded, her eyes brimming with tears. "We ought to have kept you safe. Rather, we caused you to feel alienated inside your own family." I refrained from crying. "I didn't lose it. I simply listened. And I said, 'Thank you,' after they were finished. I acknowledge your apologies. However, I will not return to the previous state of affairs." Startled, they both looked up. "On my terms, I'll be in your lives. I'm not going to save Zach again. I refuse to give up my tranquility for the comfort of others, and I will no longer allow guilt to influence my choices." Mom gripped my hand as she reached across the table. "We comprehend. We won't demand our place back. We'll have to earn it." I could breathe in that house for the first time in years. My mother followed me to the door as I walked out. "Are you planning to return next week?" "Perhaps," I answered, smiling gently. "We'll see." Under a bright sky that evening, I made my way back to my apartment, seeing the city lights reflected in each window as I went. There was no audience cheering or dramatic triumph music playing, yet something changed inside of me. This was more than just a chapter ending. It was a new one beginning, one in which I was able to draft the regulations, where I made decisions on who might access my time, space, and heart, where limits served as protection rather than punishment, and where refusing was an act of self-love rather than resistance. You understand how much of a burden it may be if you have ever felt like the strong one in your family, the one that everyone relies on until you break. Boundaries are not the only theme in Lauren's story. It has to do with freedom. After years of being picked last, it's about finally picking yourself. Walking away is sometimes the bravest thing you can do, not with resentment, but clearly in harmony. Additionally, it's possible that the life that awaits you beyond guilt will be more fulfilling than whatever you left behind. Have you ever needed to establish limits with your family members? Have you ever been taken advantage of simply because you were the one in charge? Leave a comment with your tale. You may be surprised to learn how important your voice is, and someone may need to hear it. Please remember to like the video, subscribe, and enable notifications if this story spoke to you. More authentic, unvarnished, and powerful stories are on the way. You're not by yourself. Additionally, you can keep your peace without ever having to apologize.